SMQBs episode 161. Special guest appearance from the Moosejaw.
They're not booing.
Are they saying boo or moose?
They're saying moose.
Happy Passover to everyone celebrating. Let's jump into it. We got an aggressive schedule tonight, and we're going to start off, Moose, with you. Who are you sitting down at the bar and having a drink with?
There's only one person, the greatest hockey player of my generation, Bobby Orr. That's it. That is it.
Wow. Coming in hot on the guest take. All right. Rooster, what do you got?
I think I'm going to go with the man behind me, Mel Kiper, and ask him, number one, how come he doesn't drink or ever leave his house? And number two, who he thinks the Giants ought to take with the 6th pick.
You're going to rely on him?
He's the man. He knows what he's talking about.
Pope, what about you?
One Jerry Jones.
You're going to rely on him?
Time to find out what he's thinking. No, I'm not relying on him. I just want to know what the fuck he's thinking.
Okay.
He's not.
That's the problem.
He's thinking about glory holes, apparently.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Certainly a possibility.
Okay. Wow.
Bill, what about you?
I'm gonna go with John Cooper, head coach of my Tampa Bay Lightning, and ask him why the fuck Kucherov was not more involved in the game and didn't have a shot on goal until like 25 seconds left. Because that's not how you win a NHL playoff game.
You can always find Cooper at the bar.
He will be at the bar. He will.
I can answer the question for you.
I can't wait to hear your
because he's a chicken shit Russian.
Oh,
here we go! Wow,
there we go.
Is coming in hot.
There we go.
Easy with the Russian hockey hate. Okay.
You've insulted Nace.
I mean, you've already talked about Ukraine.
This one is ode to Bison. You guys know who Mondo Duplantis is?
No, it must be a runner.
Must be a runner.
Well, I got an announcement to make. I'm starting a new sport. Mondo Duplantis broke the men's pole vault world record for the 8th time at 6.24 meters. And so I'd like to have a drink with Mondo just to get a few tips on how I can feel a little taller in life.
Yeah.
Use a pole.
All right.
Me too.
All right, I'm bringing Nelly Corda, who won her 5th straight LPGA tournament, and with a 369 in the final round, her 2nd major. So it's Nancy Lopez, Annika Sorenstam, and Nelly Corda, who have won 5 in a row on the LPGA. So cheers to her.
Probably more viewership too. No one watches the PGA Tour anymore, apparently. So
yeah, that's right. So all right, let's get into it. It's NHL playoff time, and as far as I'm concerned, the playoffs will start tomorrow. Yes. Any game that's happened before today doesn't count. But Moose, straight in from Canada, talk to us about the playoffs. What we should be looking for, what we should be excited about. What's going on?
Let's start with fuck the Toronto Maple Leafs. That game one performance was so horrible. And there's rumors going around the city right now that Willie Nylander, who has not missed a game since like 2017 or 2016, sits out game one because of an undisclosed injury suffered in the last game against Tampa. There are rumors that Sheldon Keefe benched him because he fucked the dog on game 82. And if that's true, holy crap.
Wow.
So
anyway, language.
I know, but the anger in Toronto is pretty high right now. So I'm not expecting the Leafs to put up much of a fight. If they do, great. I'll be behind them. But anyways, let's get to some of the
Is that a Canadian phrase for something other than bestiality?
What kind of dog is that? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think our listeners want to know more.
By the way, I've never heard that before.
You've never heard
this Canadian
never heard that.
It's a Canadian
and
thing.
Milk's gotten around.
I've definitely gotten around.
I've been to Canada a bunch. Never heard that.
fucking the
Miller,
dog
you
is-
sound like a very depressed Toronto fan, which is
I
just
am.
so normal for NHL playoff time.
Well,
It's just
it is, except last year when we beat Tampa. I
you
digress.
did. You got through the first round. Congrats.
I digress. Anyways, let's get to Tampa, Florida, which I think is a great series. It's going to go to 7 games, I think. And to be honest, it's going to be whoever has the healthiest people left in that series, because the hitting that went on in game 1, there were over 100 hits midway through the third period yesterday. That's going to be just a series of attrition. Whoever's healthiest is going to win that series. And it's a toss-up. Florida might get a slight advantage because of home ice, but it's ever so slight. So there is still hope for you, Mill.
They played
There's
like
still hope.
shit. The Lightning couldn't have
did.
played any worse,
They
and they
played
almost
pretty badly. They
could
did.
have won. But they've got to get Braden Point and Kucherov more involved.
Listen. You're 14, 15 minutes into the first period of game 1 of the NHL playoffs, and you don't have a shot. That was shocking. That was
Unbelievable.
shocking.
I mean, couldn't have played worse.
Now,
So
Rangers Caps.
Oh,
Bison,
this is
I'm
talking
going to
about.
tell you right now, if the Caps lose in game 6, it's a successful season. All right? Because they've got no shot. None.
Oh, I don't disagree with you. I mean, although other than a
What?
3-minute spurt yesterday,
No, they've
it
got
was a weird game.
the goaltending of the Rangers is so superior. And if OV can't get at least one shot on net, they've got no shot. Carolina and the Islanders. I would not be shocked to see the Islanders upset Carolina. Carolina's a better team, but I think the Islanders have better goaltending. Las Vegas and Dallas.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, Pope? You can't bet against the Stanley Cup champs. And they have figured out a way to get around the salary cap and get all these guys healthy just in time for the playoffs, because if it was the regular season, they'd be about $20 million over the cap. But they're not, because they acquire all these guys while guys are on injury reserve, and suddenly they're all back for the playoffs. So I got to go with Dallas in that one. Winnipeg and Colorado.
Wait,
You're going with Dallas.
Dallas?
Sound like you're going with
Dallas?
Vegas, but you're going with
Sorry,
Dallas.
Vegas. Sorry, Vegas.
Yeah.
okay.
Vegas.
All
I apologize. Winnipeg and Colorado. Winnipeg, Colorado. If you go back in time, this is a matchup of WHA teams. This is Quebec and Winnipeg. And that's how we view it in Canada. And, 7-6 last night was crazy. I didn't see any of the game, but 7-6 in game 1 was shocking. But I think Winnipeg is going to win that series. I think Nashville is going to beat Vancouver. Nashville's been the hottest team in the NHL for the last 2 months. And Vancouver has been about 500, though they did win last night. Edmonton's going to beat LA in about 5 games. And then, I'm not going to run through the whole playoffs for you guys because that's just stupid. I think it's going to be the Oilers and Boston in the finals. I think Connor McDavid, if Edmonton makes it to the finals, will be the Conn Smythe winner. And I think Edmonton wins the cup this year.
Whoa.
I believe I predicted them at the beginning of the season, and then they started off like 2-16.
I think you picked the Avs and the Lightning.
No, the Avs was 2 years ago.
I think that may be true.
Yeah, I think you did pick Edmonton.
Who's who are they gonna be in the finals though? Edmonton versus who and Boston versus who?
Oh, in the conference finals?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know who would play who, but I would say I'm going to go Edmonton and Winnipeg in the conference finals, and Boston and Carolina in the conference finals.
All Canadian conference final.
It would be incredible to have 2 Canadian teams there.
It would be great. It'd be great.
Not going to happen.
Wow,
but
no Florida, no Vegas.
No, but can I tell you, as far as Canadian teams go, like I hear that people I don't give a shit if a Canadian team wins. If Toronto's out, I don't want another Canadian team winning. No, I don't want a Canadian team
That is a lie.
It's not a lie.
That's the meanest thing. That's the meanest thing a Canadian can say. I thought Canadians were so much nicer. I thought you'd be rooting for the national, the national interest.
No,
that's something Americans do, where we root out of spite.
Well, actually, during the Boston Leaf game the other night, it's like 3-1, and suddenly the Boston fans just start cheering USA, USA. I was like, What the hell? I thought
Moose,
that
question
for you.
That's
Is
pretty
that
much
a
that's on brand.
You did predict Edmonton in the beginning of the season, and the
Yeah.
thing that you said, if I remember right, was
Yeah.
at the time I don't think they started the season with the good goaltender. Did they change their goaltender, or what's the story with their
No, so
goaltending? Because obviously you need that for the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Their goaltending's much better than was at the beginning of the season. They had Soup Campbell and Stuart Skinner. Campbell's now down in the minors. Pickford is up. He's played very well. Skinner's been much better. That is their Achilles heel. Like if they can get, they don't need awesome goaltending. They need good goaltending. Where every other team needs awesome goaltending. I think Connor McDavid's that much better than anyone else in the league that he can control a game, even in the playoffs. And I will stick with Edmonton winning the cup this year. And listen, I hope they do. Not because they're Canadian, but I'm a big Connor McDavid fan. I think he's a talent that we've never seen before. Very different than Gretzky and Crosby and others. So I'm going with Edmonton. I'm sticking with Edmonton, and I'm sure I'll be wrong.
That you fit in well on the pod.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Anybody have anything else on hockey? I mean,
Did you say anything about the Rangers?
Yeah, I said they're going to beat the Caps with no problem, but I don't see them. I'm not a big Ranger fan. I don't like the construct of their team. I think they've got great goaltending, but I'm not a big fan of the way the team is built.
So you've got the winning team in both conferences regular season. You got them out fairly early in the playoffs. Sounds like.
Yeah,
Dallas out round one. Rangers maybe round two.
Yeah.
He was right about that last year with the Bruins.
And historically, the team that wins the President's Trophy usually is out in the first or second round. They rarely go on to win.
Yeah, that is something I'm very familiar with.
Now,
that's something I'm very familiar with in hockey.
Yeah. Now, listen, the whole thing about the NHL playoffs, unlike a lot of other sports, it really is the health of the team during the playoff run. The guys play with such crazy injuries that you just never know, and they don't disclose them. I mean, upper body can mean anything, lower body can mean anything, and really it is who's going to be the healthiest once they get, if you got to win 60, you got to win 16 games. If you got to play 30, that's a lot, and that's a lot of wear and tear on the body.
It would be kind of fun to see Winnipeg, Edmonton in the Western Conference Finals, and Boston and New York in the Eastern Conference.
How do you think the ratings would be on TNT? Tilted towards the east?
You think a little bit? Yeah.
God, that sounds awful. Winnipeg, Edmonton? Jesus. Miller, you didn't make a call on the Lightning, Florida. You said it'd go 7 games, but who do you have
I've got Florida coming out. I'll tell you.
You son of a bitch.
But I said toss up. I give them the slight edge because of home ice. That was it. I mean, I do like it when Tampa loses in any sport because the way you react. But you've won enough.
All right.
Time to put that franchise dynasty to bed. Could Florida just sweep them 4-0, get it over with?
I don't think that's happening.
We'll see.
Put them out.
Thanks for joining us on this, Moose.
Moose.
Good one, Moosejaw. All right. Anybody else on hockey? Anybody got anything else? No, nothing.
We got another 3 months of hockey. We can talk about it later.
I know.
No John Tortorella questions?
He'll be back.
Who's going to win the Flyers series?
Okay. No, let's talk about the Tampa Bay Rays or something.
Okay, so we're going to move to the NFL draft then. Moose, the NFL is a football league where it's an oblong shaped ball. There's 11 guys per side, and they try and get touchdowns. That's what football is.
Wait.
Pick the ball through the H shape.
No. See, now understand that the Canadian Football League is older, and I'm familiar with 3 downs and 110-yard field. Please educate me on this NFL you speak of.
Yeah, well, it's the one that everybody watches. So we got the draft this week, and that raises the question that before we even start talking players and teams and all that, listen, guys, Milk, if you're a GM, are you going best available or are you taking need? What are you doing here? What's the plan as a GM?
Well, I don't know if it's a black or white question. Like it kind of depends on a couple things. Obviously where you're drafting and what you did the previous year. Like I think we all agree that Marvin Harrison, and maybe I'm not on an island here, but I think Marvin Harrison Jr. might be the best player in the draft this year. Okay. But that doesn't mean that the Bears, Commanders, or Patriots are going to pick him, nor should they, because all three of them are terrible teams without quarterbacks. So you've got to fill the need if you need a quarterback and you're drafting in the top spot. But after that, I think you always go with best available. Like maybe if you literally the year before pick the best safety and that's who's up on your board when it comes to you, you go with someone else. But like I the reason I say this is this happened to the Bucks, a number of years ago. We were terrible, right? And we had the 7th pick in the draft. And you could have said we needed everything, right? Like quarterback, offensive line. I mean, we needed a lot of things, but the best available player at the 7th pick was Mike Evans. And Mike Evans is still on our team 10 years later. He's made every Pro Bowl almost that there is. He gets 1,000 yards every year. He's going to end his career as a Buck, and he's probably going to make the Hall of Fame. And it's like, when you have guys like that, I don't care if you need a right tackle. You draft Mike Evans. Like, just do it and make it work, and it'll pay off. And he will be on your team a decade later when all of these other picks that you have after him and before him are way gone. So I don't know. I'm a big best available player. You take them. I don't care where they play. You make it work. You put them in wherever you can, unless you're like top 3 and you have to have a quarterback or you're the Bears and you literally don't have anyone under center.
House, what do you think?
So I'm always a best available guy. I think the teams that have succeeded, I get that if there is a generational quarterback, and we think that Caleb Williams is maybe that. I mean, look, obviously the Bears not only are going for need, they created the need by trading a guy that they had just had as the top guy a couple years ago in Justin Fields. They've created a need because of how sensational Caleb Williams' college career was and how much he closely compares to a guy who's already won 3 or 4 Super Bowls, I guess 3 now, in Mahomes. That said, if it's not a generational player, I absolutely agree with Milk. You take the guy who's best available, and while there's not a lot of trading in the NFL between free agency, it's a fluid league. Teams have changed over a lot of their teams and made it right back to the playoffs. It's not something where you're buried. Most teams aren't buried for 8-10 years, unless like you're the Jets or the Browns or something like that. You can turn it around pretty quick. And I just think, there are players who we're not going to hear of as household names when we listen to that draft board this week, but smart GMs will be taking them because they are the best available player. Their tape shows that against top competition, SEC, Big Ten competition, they dominate. That's my measuring stick.
So, House, let me ask you this. You've said in the past you think that Marvin Harrison Jr. is best available. Are you saying that the Bears should take him, or are you saying they should take Caleb because he's a generational quarterback and that's the exception?
I do think the Bears should take Caleb Williams because he's an exception, but I've said to Bison a number of times, I think and we'll get into this, I think the Commanders are making a mistake when they take Drake Maye or what's-his-face, Jayden Daniels at 2. I personally would take Marvin Harrison Jr. at 2. I think you can get a quarterback that's comparable. I don't think I don't want to take Bison's thunder because I know he's going to talk about quarterbacks. I think the drop off is so steep that the best available player after Caleb Williams is Marvin Harrison. So if I'm the GM of the Washington Commanders, my philosophy is I'm taking him at 2. People made this mistake. People made this mistake, by the way, namely the Philadelphia Eagles, when they got cute about the whole Justin Jefferson thing. And they thought, well, Jalen Reagor had special speed, blah, blah, blah. Don't make it so stupid. Justin Jefferson clearly playing against SEC talent with Joe Burrow as quarterback was sensational wide receiver. There's no question. Take him. The same
That's
thing
why
with
you
Harrison.
didn't take Drake Maye at 2.
Exactly.
I mean, I've seen
What's he
some
really
people,
played against?
I've seen some people put Drake May ahead of Caleb lately on draft boards.
You got to
not gonna
sit him
happen.
for at least for a year, don't you?
What do you mean? What'd you say?
I mean, from what I'm hearing, whoever drafts him really should sit him for a year because he's got terrible footwork and decision-making issues, and he just haven't played a whole lot. Whereas Jayden Daniels has played a ton, and they've seen everything they need to see out of that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we will get into the quarterbacks quickly here, but I think the difference between Maye and Daniels, you could debate all day long. I mean, I just don't know how anybody. Listen, nobody in the NFL knows how to separate the two of them at this point. People are going to do the best they can, but I just don't see how you can be Washington at number 2 and not take a quarterback. I mean, you have to take a quarterback. I mean, regardless of Marvin Harrison, I don't think, we haven't had a franchise quarterback in 20 years. I don't even know the last time. I mean, RG3 looked like it until he was injured and couldn't move anymore.
Right.
But, you got to have a franchise quarterback. You just got to have that player. And you got to keep drafting until you get one. So, yeah, could they make the wrong choice between Drake Maye and Jayden Daniels? Sure, they could. It's about a 40% success rate when you pick a quarterback in the first round. So they could definitely make a mistake. It doesn't make them bad GMs or bad decision makers. Nobody's figured out how to identify which of these guys could be better. But I just don't see any way to not take a quarterback with the number 2 pick when you haven't had that guy for 20 years.
So Bison, Washington did have, and they did draft a quarterback, a franchise quarterback named Kirk Cousins, and they just didn't keep him.
Well, that's true.
And he was a fourth round pick.
Yeah.
Well, they kept him for a fair amount of time.
Well, I mean, that was that old regime that didn't know what the hell they were doing. I mean, that's true. I mean, that's a fair point, but I don't know. I just don't see how you can have the second pick in the draft and be Washington and not take a quarterback.
Well,
here's the problem. Zach Wilson. And how many other quarterbacks who have been drafted in the top?
Well, everyone that year. Everyone from that draft class.
But historically, there is no predicting these quarterbacks. That's the problem.
Right.
So that's where you got to go to do, like, how sure you are versus.
You're right, but the other flip stat on that is the flip stat to that is the quarterbacks who win Super Bowls are like always first round draft pick quarterbacks with rare exception. With rare exception, the guys who are franchise quarterbacks are first round picks.
Right, but if you look,
there are exceptions, but most of the guys who
like Tom Brady.
But you look at the year Mahomes
that'd be the
was drafted.
exception.
The year Mahomes was drafted, when Kansas City drafted Mahomes, people were so upset they didn't take Trubisky because all the talk was about Mitch Trubisky that year. That's what I mean. Like, there is so much hype that goes in close to the draft that it just skews everything. It just skews it all.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into some of these players. And obviously with the quarterbacks, I mean, I think we've talked a little bit about the top 3, Caleb, of course, and Jayden Daniels, Drake Maye, JJ McCarthy's probably the 4th guy there. I know House.
Why? Do we not have a problem with that?
With what?
with JJ McCarthy being up that high?
A
I think
big
that's one of the
problem.
biggest questions of the draft. Is he legit going to be picked that high, or is he going to slip?
He's the
Oh
Baker
no, I think
Mayfield.
he's going to be picked pretty high.
I
Word
hope.
is
People are
word is
saying
the
Minnesota,
the
right?
Vikings are going to trade up, and
I think
to
the
4 and
Vikings
pick him.
or the Giants. The Giants could
No
make a
way,
run
no
at him too.
effing way the Giants are taking him. No way.
He's to Bison's point. He's just a guy. I don't think JJ McCarthy's like the next coming of whatever first round quarterback that some people think.
Brady
I
bias.
agree
Brady bias.
completely with you, Pope.
Thank you, Milk.
This is where need and best available player is going to come into play, and somebody's going to screw this up, and it's probably going to be Minnesota because they're going to take JJ McCarthy when they're going to have like a Malik Neighbors or somebody like that available. Now I know they have.
You want to know something that I think is a beautiful thing that could happen? Minnesota does that. So now the Cardinals are out of the 4th pick. And with the 5th pick, the Chargers are making a lot of noise about taking an offensive lineman. So now the Giants have the opportunity to maybe pick between Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison.
Wait. Time out. You're telling me you think the Vikings are going to move up to 4 with the Cardinals to get JJ McCarthy?
A lot of people are saying that.
No
I'm not making
way.
that. I'm not making that up. I'm repeating what I'm hearing a lot of analysts say.
12-inch letters, not going to happen.
Okay.
There's
Are
a
you
lot
with
of
me,
hype
Milk,
around
on that?
McCarthy.
This is
where the hype comes
They
from?
shouldn't
It's
do
not-
that. They should not
it's
do
not-
that.
It's not Brady, the hype. It's Brock Purdy. That's the hype. That's where the
Mr.
hype
Irrelevant?
Mr. Irrelevant, who played in the Super Bowl last year.
Okay, but Mr.
Right.
Irrelevant,
So then why are we trading up for JJ McCarthy? We get a Mr. Irrelevant.
No, Mr. Irrelevant actually had like a career where he was passing and had some accomplishments and set some records on his arm throwing capability at Iowa State. JJ McCarthy, we know so little bit about we know that he's a leader, we know that they won the national championship, but we don't know a lot about his passing capability.
Lucky. Should have lost to Alabama. Fucking lucky.
Oh, okay.
What his advocates say is there's for if you want to look at film on Jayden Daniels, you can look at 200 throws that he makes in certain situations. If you find the throws that McCarthy makes, you're looking at 40 plays, but he's making those throws just as well. Yeah. That's what they're saying. I'm with Pope and Milk. I don't buy it. I think that if this guy was as good as Caleb Williams or Jayden Daniels or even Penix, then they wouldn't have run the ball as much as they did. They would have found a reason to throw the ball. But that's not what the proponents of JJ McCarthy are saying. They're saying, look at the film. He makes all those throws. They just chose not to throw.
Right.
That's a risky pick based on chose not to throw.
I totally agree with you and Milk.
Well,
the Chargers.
I think he's a second-round pick myself.
I don't love his height. I mean, and this was a Sam Howell thing too. 6'2". I don't know. I mean, I think you want to be a little bigger in the NFL. But the one guy who I know House is dying for us to talk about right now, and he just can't control himself. He's just ready to explode if we don't.
I'm going to explode.
Oh, God.
Who are we exploding about?
Is this Tulane's quarterback?
Michael Pratt.
Boom!
Right?
I'm exploding.
Oh.
Keep your eyes on the road.
God.
Who wants to go
eyes
to the
on the road?
I'm gonna have to pull over.
Who wants to go to the Super Bowl?
What,
now we're talking. By the way, Michael Pratt's better than JJ McCarthy. Write it down. Write it down.
You think he has the arm? I don't think he has the arm strength.
How do you spell Pratt?
Doesn't have the arm.
He does not have the arm strength of that. That is what's going to keep in third, fourth round. He's not having the arm strength. He has wisdom, intelligence, craftiness. He knows how to use his legs. You know what? Honestly, again, Tom Brady he's not my favorite guy. What he was coming out of the draft was not on arm strength, and that's what dropped him down. I'm not
He was
comparing
a
Michael Pratt.
sixth-round
Let me
pick,
be
though.
clear. That's what I'm saying. Michael Pratt is going to be picked too low for what his abilities are. He is not Tom Brady, but he is going to bring to a team moxie. Once that guy, you're going to see, he's going to get some time during preseason when they don't play the starters. And people are going to be like, "Who's this Michael Pratt guy?" He's actually making some really impressive throws.
He sounds with someone with the upside of Ryan Fitzpatrick.
You know who you just described? You just described Taylor Heineke.
Well, I don't know.
Crafty guy, knows how to use his legs, doesn't have the arm to make all the throws. I mean, you just described Taylor Heineke.
There's one quarterback who beat Caleb Williams in a bowl game that's going to be drafted Thursday night, and that was Michael Pratt in the Cotton Bowl.
All right,
so
we can't
watch
just
the film on that.
All right, we can't just talk quarterbacks, but I am going to give you one name of a quarterback who could be a sleeper pick, and have a pretty good NFL career. And it's not Michael Penix, it's not Bo Nix, but keep an eye on Spencer Rattler in his career.
Wow.
No,
What?
No, boo.
I'm just saying he's got a lot of physical talent.
Perennial bench warmer.
Maybe, but I'm telling you, he wouldn't be a sleeper if you expected him to be a superstar. Okay, that was the whole point of the sleeper pick. But I mean, I
thought
think
you were going to
Spencer
say
Rattler,
Jordan Travis.
Well, I think Travis is too small, 6'1", 200 pounds. I don't like that. But Rattler, I don't know. Just don't be shocked. He could be the quarterback who's the surprise out of this draft. So
I will be
We
shocked.
got to move on. Milk, talk some wide receivers.
Well, look, we all know about Marvin Harrison. I think everyone agrees that he's going to Arizona, right? I mean,
No.
Well,
no.
except for those who think that Minnesota is going to trade up and draft McCarthy at 4.
If that doesn't happen, Arizona, it's a good fit. It will help Kyler Murray. I think, but honestly, to the Minnesota decision, if LA moves out of that position and doesn't take either Harrison or Neighbors, that is the biggest fuck up in the history of the NFL draft. They do not have a wide receiver right now. I think their starting wide receivers are Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnson, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Right now. They have to take a wide receiver at number 5, but we'll see what they do. And by the way, it's freaking Harbaugh now. So who knows? Maybe he'll trade up to get
for JJ.
to get JJ.
So you've got a Dunze as your third wide receiver?
I've got a Dunze as the third. And I think, honestly, you know who could really – I think the Bears could kick it. I think they could get him at 9.
Yeah, I do too.
I do too.
They could.
Should be
And
a hell
I
of a
think he is 1B.
pick.
It's 1A and 1B. It's Neighbors and Harrison. And arguably, you might have it Dunze ahead of Neighbors.
Yeah,
he had
most mock drafts
1,640
have
yards
flipped.
receiving. 1,640
Yeah.
yards receiving and 13 touchdowns this year. And by the way, Penix, he's great, but he didn't have, LSU's quarterback. So I've got him at 3. Then I think it starts to drop off a little bit. Brian Thomas
is up there.
Texas's wide receivers are okay. If the Chargers drop back, maybe they could look at one of them. I think Jacksonville. Ridley's gone now at Jacksonville, right?
Yep. He's on the Titans.
Right. So they need maybe a Brian Thomas when it falls to them. The Chiefs absolutely have to draft a wide receiver. We don't know what's going on with Rice, if he'll even be on the team next year. I don't know. Look for maybe honestly, I like Keon. I hate to say this, but a lot of people don't know him. Keon Coleman for Florida State.
Amazing.
Massive individual. He's like 6'5". I hate him. He just absolutely abused Florida for like several years. He slowed down at the end of the year, but mainly that was due to Jordan Travis's injury. I think he could be a good fit if he goes low to the Chiefs. A lot of people are talking about Xavier Leggett for South Carolina. I watched him play this year. He schooled the Gators as well. A lot of people school the Gators, but he had like 1,300 yards receiving. I don't know if you remember him, Pope. But he had a good year with Rattler throwing in the ball. I'd say a kind of a look out for is Malachi Corley for Western Kentucky, who had 101 receptions in 2022 and 11 TDs last year and like 80 receptions. Totally under the gun. Everyone's going to love him, especially the Eagles if they get him. Ricky Pearsall for the Gators. He
Let's
is
go.
totally underrated. Draft this guy.
Best route runner out there, isn't he?
He is a unbelievable route runner. I really am afraid the Saints are going to take him.
Milk.
The Eagles do have to pick someone because they gotta dump AJ Brown after he shit all over Philadelphia and insulted those fragile egos of the Philly fans. So,
Milk, you mentioned the Texas receivers, but specifically, I think the new reek potentially is Xavier Worthy, the guy who set the 40 speed record for the combine. I mean, I think if you get him the ball, if Mahomie can get him the ball and let him run, he's another reek. He'd be great down for that pick.
But who's their other wide receiver on Texas?
Adonai Mitchell.
Adonai Mitchell also ran just a hair slower than that and is a better receiver.
But he may be gone higher. That's my point. I think.
Oh, okay.
Xavier
I'll tell
Worthy,
you who won't be gone higher. Who is going to be available at the end of the first round is Ladd McConkey, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Chiefs took him because they already have Hollywood Brown now in free agency, so they need a a Thielen kind of guy.
McConkey is a great route runner.
Yeah.
That goes to the whole Chargers thing because if the Chargers are going to draft a wide receiver, do they draft out of 5? Because you could probably go down and still get Worthy or Mitchell.
Yep.
So we'll see what Harbaugh does there.
Herbert was getting his ass kicked all last year because their line is like Swiss cheese.
Yeah. All right.
Well, that's one of the big questions is when do the non-skill player when do we see a non-skill player go?
When you have a franchise quarterback who's playing with broken ribs all the time because his offensive line can't stop anyone.
But Chargers could drop down. They could drop down and get a tackle.
Exactly.
Rooster, let's take it there then. Tell us about the DNs, the offensive linemen. Who should we be looking at?
Well, I did go to the combine and I've been paying attention to this a fair amount. I would say that the offensive linemen who are pretty much seen as the top, let's say 5, are in no specific order: Joe Alt of Notre Dame, Troy Fautana of Washington, Olu Fashanu of Penn State, J.C. Latham of Alabama, and this guy Talis Fuaga, who came on late from Oregon State. That guy's an animal. Whoever gets him is going to have a brawler for an offensive lineman, and he may turn out to be the best of all of them. But I really think that the first team to pick is going to be the Titans at 7, who needs a lineman. I don't think the Giants are taking a lineman again. Everyone has them taking Joe Alt. I'm not sure Joe Alt is the number 1 of that crew, but that's who they have him going to. He'd be paired with Peter Skoronski on the other side. So you're going to have 2 bookend offensive tackles. That's going to be pretty good offensive line for Levis, and throwing to D-Hop and Ridley. The Titans could really turn it around offensively next year. Next up is going to be the Jets. And you know what? Leave it to the Jets to fuck this up and take Brock Bowers, which they probably will do.
Yes.
And then their old man quarterback Aaron Rodgers is going to last another 4 plays before he gets killed, and they're stuck with no quarterback.
But that's an interesting point, though, Rooster, because Bowers, by some accounts, is the best player in the draft.
But he can't. He's not going to be able to block anyone, and you've invested all this money in Aaron Rodgers, and it was a jailbreak for the first 4 plays last season, and they couldn't keep anyone off of him.
Well, that's not
They
why
need
he
offensive
ruptured his
tackles
Achilles.
so badly that it would be GM malpractice to draft anything other than an offensive tackle by the Jets. They should take Fashanu or Fa'atanu. End of story. If they don't do that, that's why they're the Jets. Next up is going to be the Chargers if they trade down to 11. I still think if they trade down to 11, they're going to get one of those guys, including J.C. Latham. And then the Saints at 14 and the Bengals at 18. The same thing I said about the Chargers. You can't have Joe Cool as your quarterback and not beef up that offensive line. I mean, you just too much invested in him, and his injuries have been too bad. You have to, if they could get Talise Fuaga at 18, that's a steal, and they could even plug him in at guard if they needed to. That, to me, that's the smartest move they can make. And then the final 2 teams I think absolutely have to take linemen are the Steelers and the Cowboys, because the Cowboys have lost so many good older offensive linemen, and you've got guys like Graham Barton from Duke, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, who's a 320-pound center, and Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma, who's a 328-pound offensive tackle. I think down at that part of the draft, the Cowboys will wind up with one of those guys, I predict.
Did you mention Amarius Mims yet from Georgia? He's another guy.
Yeah, he's a big dude, and they
mock
could take
draft
him.
and Cowboy mock draft I've seen have him going there.
Yeah,
so what I'm hearing you say is that the Cowboys will take a running back.
Yes.
They're aren't they in talks to take your man back?
Oh yeah, they're gonna bring Zeke back. That seems smart. Did they already do that?
No.
Maybe
He's
they'll
lobbying
trade up
for
to
it.
take
He's
McCarthy.
lobbying for it.
I think it's happening. House,
have we even
what do we
mentioned a
got?
running back yet?
No.
Well,
House, talk to us about cornerbacks and other, which I guess gets running back now.
Well, let me just answer Pope right there, because until you get to really around the 50th best player in the draft, you don't even think about a running back in this year's draft. This is probably the weakest crop of running backs. It's just not something you're going to hear about for sure on day 1, maybe not even on day 2. Jonathan Brooks from Texas is a guy who's a pounder, a good running back. I don't think he's going to be a guy that anyone's going to see as a rookie back getting 15, 20 carries. So running backs, there's just not a focus of this draft.
Which is interesting, because the new paradigm in the NFL now is draft a good running back as a rookie, pay him his rookie contract, and then let him go and go get another one. So what are teams going to do now?
Well,
you could draft him in the 3rd round.
Pope, it's a good point, but as it relates to cap management and dealing with salaries, but this is a passing league. And because it's a passing league, this is a dream year to cover those wide receivers. You're going to see maybe 5 or 6 cornerbacks taken in the 1st round. You're going to probably see 2 taken in the top 10, 12 picks. This is a dream draft for cornerbacks, led by one of Pope's guys, Terrion Arnold, who Pope would probably be able to tell you a lot more than I can about Arnold, because I've not seen him nearly as much. But this guy plays like Jalen Johnson's a superstar on the Chicago Bears. He's a true number 1 quarterback. He's cornerback. He plays with attitude. He's a great cover corner. He's going to be a top 10 pick.
And Kool-Aid
McKinstry, who's probably the number 1 name that's come out of the draft. I mean, if you can't have a Kool-Aid McKinstry on your team, I said don't take best available or need, just take best name.
And name.
I love that.
Kool-Aid will probably go at the end of the 1st round. I think there's a big drop off between Terry and Arnold,
which means he'll go to a good fucking team.
He will. That's very true. Quinyon Mitchell is a cornerback that played on Toledo. Watch in the draft people climb up to get Quinyon Mitchell. They have loved him in postseason stuff, combines, the senior, the postseason games, his tape. Quinyon Mitchell, 6 foot 195 stud.
I think you're just making players up now. I don't even think there's such a person as Quinyon Mitchell. I just think you're making fucking guys up, and nobody's gonna know any of these names.
He's a real guy. But here's the name to watch out for. We know that Cooper Kupp on the Rams and what he's done to that position, kind of unexpectedly. You don't see a lot of small-ish white receivers take over. Well, there's another Cooper in this draft named Cooper DeJean. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, whether he goes by DeJean or DeJean, but Cooper DeJean from the Iowa Hawkeyes is a guy that will play every part of the secondary: cornerback, safety, nickelback. He's also a very good kick returner. He's literally one of the best defensive backs in the draft, but he's probably going to go late first round. But I think over time, he is going to be a player that we're going to be talking about for a long time. And I think honestly, guys, I think part of the reason why he's not going to be drafted higher is because people aren't going to trust the fact that you can take a white cornerback high up in the draft. But he's a special player. Beyond cornerbacks, you guys have already talked a lot about Brock Bowers. My question to you guys is, knowing what you know now, how high would you take a player like a George Kittle? Because that's the comp for this guy, Brock Bowers. And in today's passing game in the NFL, it's all about mismatches. I think what we saw in the Super Bowl last year were two teams that capitalized on mismatches. The Chiefs and their whole very inventive offense, and the 49ers and their inventive offense create all kinds of mismatch problems for defenses. That's what Brock Bowers adds to. So the question is to you guys, if you knew you could get a George Kittle, how high would you take a George Kittle? Is it worth using a top 10 pick on a tight end? Is a tight end that important? The Falcons did it a couple years ago in Kyle Pitts, and I think because of poor coaching, we haven't seen the full ceiling of Kyle Pitts yet. But I think we will. So, that's the everything else group of running backs, tight ends, and cornerbacks.
You take them if you have the Jets pick.
Yeah.
By the way, do you still want to cover edge rushers, Bison?
Yes.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Because the news today from ESPN is that the league is thinking about a severe sanction against the Falcons for interfering with Kirk Cousins' contract with the Vikings. And if it's by severe, if they mean taking away their number one draft pick, they're screwed because they need an edge rusher desperately. They haven't had a pass rush.
That would be beyond severe.
Yes.
That would be a shame.
First round seems high.
Yeah.
It would be a shame.
I think it would be huge. It would be huge. It's not like they had the guy out on their yacht or anything.
Well, let's get us through the edge rushers. So
I think the Falcons at 8 are going to take the first edge rusher if they are able to hold on to that pick. There's a lot of talk about them taking Dallas Turner from Alabama.
Roll Tide.
I really like Jared Verse from Florida State. Milk, you like that guy, right?
Yeah, he's good.
He's a beast. He is a beast.
You respect him. You don't have to like him.
Yeah, I don't like him.
There's some talk about Byron Murphy. He's an interior defensive lineman, but he's sort of maybe the next Darnold. They've got to take somebody though to put pressure on the quarterback. The next one up would be the Rams at 19. They need a pass rush to replace what they're losing from retirement. They would take one of those guys who's not picked by the Falcons. There's some talk about maybe Latu from UCLA staying in California and playing for the Rams. I don't think he's the second best edge rusher. I think he's he's a little slight. He's not as fast as you think. He was slower than some of these other guys. And then Chop Robinson's another guy who maybe goes to the Bucks.
Tampa.
Could go to the Bucks.
All
You guys
right,
need
all right.
some
We
pass rush.
desperately.
I'll tell you what, though. Remember I was gushing about Braden Fisk from Florida State. He will maybe goes in the late second or third round, but whoever gets that guy is going to wind up with somebody like Max Crosby eventually.
Wow.
For the Raiders.
Wow.
That's some comp.
High motor, fast. He weighs 298, 6'5", and ran a 4.78 40, and hustled throughout every combine drill that I watched. Like he just didn't have a slow speed, like Pete Rose running the bases in the All-Star game. That's Braden Fisk. Whoever gets that guys, you mark my words, he's going to be a surprise, second, third round pick who later on in the redraft, they'll be thinking, wow, I should have gone late first round.
All right. Hey, Moosejaw, tell us who's going to be the first goalie off the board.
Going one in the CFL draft.
I wanted to.
The CFL draft goes in about 2 weeks.
All right, we'll have you back on to cover that.
All right.
And then we'll never publish it. But all right. Does anybody have a punch?
Pretend pod.
Who's got a punch?
Yeah, there are punches. Who's got a punch?
I'll give you a punch.
Go ahead.
All right. Let's punch the guys who finished the Beijing half marathon. So you got China.
My Lord.
Oh my God.
Another running segment.
As a runner, he's just outraged.
He's so upset.
You don't break the code this way. All runners know this stuff. You got the top.
Now he knows the code
of the Beijing half marathon. They were all stripped of their medals and disqualified because the three guys from Africa who were leading the whole thing ushered in the Chinese guy to win it. They just dropped off and they let him go through, and they let He cross the finish line in 1 hour 3:44. Now, the story is a little more complicated than that because allegedly these guys were just pace runners out there, but they weren't reported that they were going to be pace runners. So it's all very confusing, but what we know is that He was stripped of his title for winning it, and he is going to have to look forward to the Summer Olympics. He is actually quite the runner, but come on, guys, don't throw the fucking race. That's pathetic. You get a punch. All four of them punched. Punch. Who else has got a punch?
I've got one, and you guys aren't even going to believe who I'm punching, but I'm punching whoever from the Yankees management was in charge of the John Sterling retirement ceremony. John Sterling, as you all know, has been the announcer, the radio announcer for the Yankees for at least 45 years, and just a legend. And for his retirement event at a game recently, they presented him with a television. That was it.
It was a big TV.
Fucking
Come on,
television.
83 inches.
$300 at Costco.
How many televisions do you think a guy like John Sterling already owns? I mean, he's a celebrity, for God's sake.
It was an LG.
Jesus.
Not even a
embarrassing.
watch. They could have
It's
even given him
embarrassing.
an Apple Watch.
Embarrassing. They should have given him like Babe Ruth's baseball glove or something.
Right. That is embarrassing. Jeez.
Okay.
All right. Any other punches?
I got one. The Colorado Rockies coach who decided it'd be a good idea to go into the cockpit of the United flight from Toronto to Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
And videotape himself and post it.
While the pilots are violating all the FAA regulations, right, in the world.
That's everything.
Okay. We've literally redesigned cockpits to keep everybody but flight crew out of them, right? I mean, there's literally precautions in place, and these guys are like, "Come on in, bro. Check it.
Get a cocktail. Come on in."
Yeah. Oh God, that's good.
Come
All
on,
right, any
Moose.
other punches? Who's got a lasso?
I got a lasso.
Oh, good.
All right.
All right.
Take it over.
Aaron Presley. 10-year-old, and I can't believe it's from
Oh,
Philadelphia.
God, you're really going to do this?
Yes.
Here we
because
go. Here we
You're
Because-
never
go.
getting invited back.
Gosh.
Just letting you know.
Ooh.
I think Toby will invite me back.
We're gonna have a one-on-one pot, me and you, buddy.
Yeah.
This kid, no, first of all, this kid gets the foul ball, sees this 4 or 5-year-old girl crying because she wanted the ball, and good for him. He just gave her the ball. And I gotta tell you, the most impressive part, his interview on TV that was posted online. This kid was amazing.
It's true.
You know what? I was more impressed with the interview that he did than him just giving up the ball. But that's a Lasso. I'm sorry.
It's true. In related news, the Eagles fans pelted him with, the Phillies fans pelted him with batteries for being soft and giving up the ball.
All right. You know what? You know what? I actually was going to be nice and not do a punch for the Knicks fans that were cheering Embiid when he got hurt. But now that you've gone there with the snowballs, listen, when you bring out the snowballs, I've always got something held in reserve. Can I go on to my
Snowballs
Lasso?
loaded with batteries.
If you want to punch the Knicks fans, you should punch them for chanting "We want Boston" after one freaking win. Jesus.
A very low IQ fan group. Anyway, I have a Lasso. We're staying in Philadelphia. I don't know if you guys heard this story.
Would you live there?
Pretty consistent with the character of Jalen Hurts. But one of the tough things for these kids, it used to be that it was no big deal to stay in school April, May, and June and didn't matter. But these days, particularly in the city schools in Philadelphia that do not have air conditioning, it is oppressive. It's bad enough to stay in school all the way into the summer months. And Jalen Hurts recognizes that's a real problem with learning. And so this past week, he provided the funding for 300 schools air conditioning to a tune of $200,000. So these kids will be able to be in a climate controlled classroom. I just think that's a class act, very consistent with them. Gets my Lasso for this week.
God,
All right.
That's cool.
He's really trying
Buzzer
not to
beaters.
get cut.
That's funny.
Who's got a buzzer beater?
I got a couple. So we haven't talked about the NBA, so we'll do it very quickly. Home teams 8-0. Can't remember the last time that happened in the first round. So, maybe the seeding actually is going to matter this time. And the Thunder, as House pointed out, extremely shaky. They almost lost. They had a 3-point shot to survive last night. So I think that number 1 seed is looking a little problematic. And we'll see if the Mavs can make a series out of it tomorrow. My other buzzer beater is, and we talked about Nelly Corda in the beginning, and she's the best golfer on the planet right now. 5 consecutive wins, 2 majors, but on a major heater right behind her is Dallas's own Scotty Scheffler, 40 consecutive rounds under par, first golfer since Tiger to win, 4 out of 5 consecutive top 2s, 10th victory in 51 starts. The fastest. Does anybody know who the fastest to 10 wins was?
Not Tiger.
David Duval. Took him 33 starts. People forget how dominant he was in the early days.
He was. Yeah,
just unbelievable. It took Tiger 59 starts. And all of Scotty's wins have come since Waste Management in 2022. So it's quite a run that he's on.
Great job for Sleepy Scotty. It's awesome.
All right.
I've got
Rooster,
one.
you got a buzzer beater?
Yeah, I do. The Suns just got spanked by the T-Wolves partly because they can't get a rebound. And I just think it's interesting that they actually missed DeAndre Ayton in that lineup. I thought that was a mistake to let him go. He doesn't need to be a superstar, but you have to get rebounds. And he had 2 games, not, like 3-4 weeks ago, where he got like 35 points and 19 rebounds and 30 points and 19 rebounds. Suns I think are ruining the day. They let Ayton walk.
Good one. Miller, you
I
got
got
one?
I've got one because I love when funny stuff happens to the Yankees. But
Oh, yeah.
apparently Apparently, Boone got thrown out of the game today because the
First
home
inning.
umpire mistook a fan talking shit to him
That's
and thought
awesome.
it was Boone, but it was really a fan, and he threw Boone out of the game, which is awesome. So
Boone's
That
just,
was
nice
funny.
work to that. And then
Boone's
they end up
just sitting
losing.
there.
Wow. Miller, you got one?
I don't.
All right. I'll wrap it up then with a buzzer. Nice moment at the end of the Chinese Grand Prix yesterday. I'm not sure if everybody saw it, but
Is Chris getting paid by the Chinese right now?
I know. We're keeping it in China.
Is this a
But
running
Joe
or a
Grandieu-
car?
Joe Grandieu, the
Marathon.
Chinese driver, racing in front of the hometown fans. It's the first time the race has been there since before COVID, and they actually had a placard out for him to stop his car, kind of like the 1, 2, 3 winners placards, which is a little weird. But Formula One clearly did this because they were ready with it for him to stop and take a bow in front of the hometown fans. And by all accounts, he's a pretty good guy, and everybody in the pit row likes him and kind of roots for him a little bit. And he was really emotional at the end, taking a bow in front of his fans. So I thought it was nice of F1 to let that happen, make it happen, and then just a good moment for him at the end of the race.
F1
certainly more interesting than who won the race.
F1 should have let him win.
Yeah. So that's my buzzer beater. Anyone got anything
Where
else?
did he finish?
Well, that's not important, Pope. Why do you have to ruin a good story? We talked about this. Formula One is our sport where it's more interesting for who doesn't win. Come on.
That's right.
All right, guys. Anyone got anything else? Moose, thanks for being here. Happy Passover,
Moose.
everyone.
Moose.
Thanks for
The
having me.
Commanders' return to glory starts this Thursday. Have a good week, everyone.
Go Knicks.